And Jose Antonio Vargas joins me now to talk about his new book. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been 7 years since you announced that you were undocumented in a New York Times Magazine essay. And since then, you've produced documentaries, you've appeared in numerous interviews. Why did you decide to write a memoir now?
I actually didn't. Originally, I wanted to write a book about global migration. According to the UN, there's 258 million migrants in the world. And I wanted to understand, what is the human right of people to move? What does that look like? And then the election of Donald Trump happened, and I was living in downtown LA, and the building manager, I was living there for like 2 years at that point, texted me a few days after the election and said, "We're not sure we could protect you if ICE showed up in the apartment. You may want to move out." So then that's when I had to kind of face the reality that I've been here 25 years, I can get detained and deported at any point.
That must have been a tough message to absorb.
And then yes, it was, but it kind of forced me to do something that I never want to do, which I think people don't want to do, which is like mental health, right? Like, how do you actually feel what this is? I've been so busy running away from it, I think, and juggling so many things. I don't have to deal with it. So that's, the book, as you know, is structured lying, passing, and hiding, right? And so the book is really about what the psychological toll is of being in this country as a quote-unquote illegal alien, according to President Trump.
And for those who don't know your story, your mom put you on a plane from the Philippines heading to the U.S. to live with your grandparents when you were 12. You didn't know you were undocumented until you were 16 and tried to get a driver's license. In your book, you write just really candidly and sometimes heartbreakingly about your deep alienation from your grandparents. And you write, quote, "The America they dreamed for me was not the America I was creating for myself."
I had to really try to understand why they did what they did. And when I was a kid, when I was 16, I didn't understand any of it. They smuggled me here. They paid somebody $4,500. They had all the fake papers. My grandfather, I grew up in Mountain View, as you know. And so my grandfather thought, I come here, I work at the flea market on Berryessa Road as a janitor, and then I would marry a woman who's a US citizen, and poof, right? But their thinking was, I would work an under-the-table job. I would live kind of this under-the-table life.
And you did not want that life.
I did not want that. I didn't want it because I thought I wanted to exist. I didn't want to just be invisible, right? And I think for me, that was like the number one thing. The moment I found out I was here illegally, I didn't want to surrender to what that was.
And so you existed for a long time as a journalist. You won awards along the way. But there are some undocumented immigrants who are resentful of the America that you have created for yourself. You write about activists. You write about it in your book, about activists who want to know, where were you, Jose, when we were on the front lines all these years fighting for immigrant rights? Where were you?
I was too busy lying, passing, and hiding. I was too busy trying to create this successful version of what I was supposed to be. Because I think since I found out I was here illegally when I was 16, I had internalized that I was supposed to earn something, right? And I was very honest in the book about that. Even when an activist said to me, you can't represent us, you're not even Mexican, right? Because this issue has been so married to Latinos and specifically Mexican. But, look, like this book for me was a way of really exploring what all these issues are and where all the hurt is.
And you're very critical. You blame the media, too, for some of the hurt and some of the misperceptions. You're very critical about how mainstream media has covered immigration. Where do you think the media has failed?
I think, and I think I'm critical of it because journalism is sacred to me, right? Like it was the first thing I ever thought of myself.
You worked for the Washington Post.
I worked at the Chronicle, just a few blocks that way, right? And so journalism is very important to me. What we do is very important to me. And I think the fact that we, in general, there are some exceptions, have failed to really connect the dots between the 11 million undocumented immigrants like me in this country and how that is connected to the 43 million immigrant population in America. So you can't separate the undocumented from the documented. This is actually not about immigration reform, it's about the changing America. Right?
And with President Trump in office, and with more reporting on issues like the border wall and the family separation issue with Central American refugees, do you see some improvements in the coverage?
Absolutely, and it's kind of embarrassing, frankly, that it took Trump for most of our colleagues in the media to finally wake up that this is a human rights crisis. What Trump has done and is doing is a culmination of all the policies that Democrats and Republicans have been a part of. This has been a bipartisan mess. It's not just Trump.
Do you worry about being deported? You could be any time.
You know, that's the interesting thing. I lived in fear of that for 14 years, from 16 to the age of 30. And the past 7 years, being this public thing that I am, that hasn't really been my worry. I'm ready for it. I've been ready 7 years ago. So that's not the fear. The fear is, am I living my life as fully and as honestly as I can?
Have you thought about what you will do if you are deported?
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen my mom for 25 years, and she's in the Philippines. 2 more years for her to come here legally. She's been waiting in line. So I'd see her. You know, thankfully, I'm a writer and I'm a filmmaker, and I can write and make films anywhere. Yeah. But look, I think I've decided to stay. And so if the government decides to deport me, it'll be a fight.
Why do you think they haven't deported you?
I have no idea. I actually, you know, when
you're not hard to find.
I'm at Starbucks usually, so they'll find me there. You know, after I came out 7 years ago, a few months later, when I haven't heard anything from the government, I actually called the government myself. I write that in the book. I called ICE myself. I said, hi, I'm Jose Antonio Vargas. I haven't heard from you, right? What do you plan to do with me? And the woman on the line was like, no comment.
Really?
She knew who I was, she said, but she was wondering, why are you calling us? Well, I haven't heard from you. You know, as a journalist, I'm like, we have to follow up the story. And so I come out. Obama at the time was deporting 400,000 immigrants, and why wasn't I one of them?
How has your concept of being a citizen changed since you came out as an undocumented person?
So I am not a citizen because I was not born in this country, the accident of birth. And I'm not a citizen because legally I am not. I would argue that there's a different kind of citizenship that undocumented immigrants subscribe to, and it's citizenship of participation. I actually think it's miraculous that undocumented immigrants get up every day, go to work, send their kids to school, and provide for their families, even under this administration.
Many of them pay taxes.
Pay taxes, parts of their communities. I think that's miraculous, and I think that's a different kind of citizenship, and I would argue a deeper kind of citizenship.
Okay, Jose Antonio Vargas, your new book is Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.